Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Councillor Mrs. Judy Butt, and I'm the person presiding at this meeting this morning. I'm chairman of the Licensing Committee, and I am also a ward councillor for Creekmore, Hilborn and Waterloo in BCP. And I formally open this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. So before we start, we need to nominate chairman, please. So do I have any nominations for chairman, please?
I am nominated chairman.
Thank you very much. And a second? May I have a second, please?
Second, Councillor Butt. I'm quite happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Decent and Councillor Burton. So we move on then to there are no apologies, although I would like to thank Councillor David Kelsey, who's very kindly stood in as our reserve today. We always have reserve just in case a member is indisposed and can't be here. So Councillor Kelsey, you're more than welcome to stay and observe, or you're more than welcome to stay and get on with your Christmas preparations. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to everyone. Sorry I can't be there this morning. Happy Christmas to you all, members, officers, etc. And I will speak with you all later. If you do need me, please feel free to call me. I'm not very far away.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we move to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Members, this is stated as on the flow chart at page 2 of our agenda. Are there any declarations of interest? I'll take in turn. Councillor Burton, do you have any declarations of interest?
None at all, Councillor Butt.
Thank you very much. Councillor Decent?
None at all.
Okay, and I declare that I have no declarations of interest for the record as well. Thank you. We move now to item 4, which is the protocol for public speaking, which is at agenda item 4, which outlays the protocol. I will be going through the process at the next item, but just to make sure that everybody has that copy. So moving on then to the case in train, we move to the new premises licensing application, item 5, the Duckling Stool Lane, Christchurch. And I would like,
Sorry to interrupt you there, Chairman.
Yes.
It's Nikki. Did you want me to go through the housekeeping before you move into the item proper?
Indeed, I did. I have forgotten the most important person, which is right at the top with a big yellow line through it, and I ignored it. Thank you so much, Nikki, if you would. Nikki is our clerk, and she'll take us through housekeeping, which will keep us safe for the meeting. Thank you, Nikki. Bless you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so the housekeeping notice for this morning's meeting. Please note that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure that the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone follow these ground rules when speaking. Please only speak when invited to by the Chairman. When speaking, please state your name before you start speaking if you have not been introduced by name already. Please ensure that you unmute yourself and always turn on the video function before speaking. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. After each party has made their representation, the Chairman will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please use the raise your hand function, which is at the top of the right of the screen. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or at least switched to silent for the duration of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki, and excellently put forward. Bless you. Thank you. So going back then to introductions, quite a few of us present today. I'm going to go in turn and introduce everybody to everybody else so that we understand who's in the room. So I'll start with myself. I have already told you who I am, but I'll repeat. I'm Councillor Mrs. Judy Butt, and I am the chairman of the Licensing Committee and also chair of this subcommittee for today's hearing, and I am a ward member for Creekmore, Hilborn and Waterloo. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Richard Burton. I'm a ward member for Bearwood and Merley and a member of this committee today.
Thank you. And Councillor Decent.
Hello there. I'm Kinston West Hill councillor and a member of the Licensing Committee.
Thank you very much. And now we have Nikki Hooley, our clerk.
Thank you, Nikki Hooley, Democratic Services Officer and clerking today's meeting.
And Sarah Rogers, our licensing officer.
Good morning. Yes, Sarah, BCP Council.
Thank you. And Sarah will be presenting the application, the report today. And we also have with us Nananka Randall, who is our licensing manager. Nananka.
Yes, good morning. I'm BCP licensing manager.
Thank you. And Linda Cole, our legal advisor, please.
Good morning. It's Linda Cole advising the subcommittee this morning.
Thank you very much, Linda. And now we move on to our applicant, Mr. Morrell. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Mr. Morrell.
Hello, I'm Mr. Daniel Morrell, applicant.
Morel. Okay,
Yeah,
just got that
Morel. I
pronunciation.
don't mind. I get called lots.
Okay. Now we have some other persons present to speak, and they are just like to confirm that we have Mr. and Mrs. Jamalkovic. They are down in the bottom corner of my screen. We also have Mr. Nick Soloway. He is with us, and we have Mr. Voisey. Do we have Mrs. Alacon? Is she with us yet? Yes, you are indeed.
Yes.
Mrs. Alacon, I can see you. Well, you're all extremely welcome. Now, I'd just like to ascertain before I introduce you all, we also have made representation, and that's Mr. and Mrs. Kevin Farrell. And we have Mr. Knight, and of course we have Mrs. Jennifer Voisey, who made representation with her husband, Mr. Voisey. And we also have Mr. Underhill, I believe Mr. Daniel Underhill, but I don't think he's with us, he's not present. So that said, I have 5 members of the public who made representations present. Were you all wishing to make verbal representations, or were some of you wishing to observe? So I'll go in turn. Mrs. Alacon, did you wish to speak?
Well, I only wish to speak if the points I would like to make are not covered by other other people.
Well, I'm afraid if you're alphabetical, you're first on.
Okay.
So
well,
I'll put that down as a yes. Okay,
All
thank you
right.
very much. Thank you very much. And then I've got Mr. and Mrs. Yarmolovic. Did you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to speak, please.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just taking as to whether you wish to speak or not. You'll be second. And then I have Mr. Neville Voisey. Did you wish to speak, Mr. Voisey?
Yes, I would like to say a few words. Thank you.
That's absolutely fine. And then we have Mr. Soloway. So Mr. Soloway, would you like to speak?
I'll observe for this stage. Thank you.
You'll observe. Okay, so we have 3 speakers. I take it is, will you be you, Mr. Yarmolovic, who will be speaking on behalf of yourself and your wife?
Correct.
Okay, so we have Mrs. Alacon, who will be speaking first. We then have Mr. Yarmolovic on behalf of himself and his wife, and then we have Mr. Neville Voisey also speaking on behalf of himself and his wife. So having ascertained that, if you'd like to introduce yourself. So firstly, Mrs. Alacon.
My name is Melanie Alacon. I'm a resident of Duckingstall Lane.
You're very welcome. And then
Thank
we've
you.
got Mr. and Mrs. Yarmolovic.
Yeah, hello there. It's Andrew Yarmolkiewicz and my wife.
Yarmolkiewicz, right.
And my wife, Angela Yarmolkiewicz, and we are residents of number 4 Duckingstall Walk.
Thank you very much. And then we've got Mr. Nick Soloway.
That's correct. I'm here.
Okay. And Mr. Neville Voisey.
Yes, my name is Neville Voisey and I live in Duckingstall Lane.
Okay. And we'd also like to thank representations which were made by Mr. and Mrs. Kevin Farrell and Mr. Daniel Underhill and Mr. Paul Knight. So thank you for those representations. So that everybody being introduced to everybody else, I hope everybody's happy with that and you understand who's in the room. So we'll just confirm the following, that everybody who has given notice of their intention to speak has been identified, and that anybody who wishes to withdraw at this moment make representation, but I don't think there is anybody present. If there is, please show a hand. I'm seeing nothing. And just to check before we start proceedings and I go through order of speaking, can I just confirm that everybody has sight of the appendices, being Appendix A, the application, Appendix B, the location plan regarding the application, and Appendix C, the list of representations. Is everybody content? Thank you. So now on to order of speaking. It's a set order and I'll go through it. It's fairly simple. So firstly, I'll ask our licensing officer, Sarah, to present the report. And then I'll ask our applicant, Mr. Marrell, to make his representation, his application. There'll be questions of the applicant made by the members of the committee and questions from the officer on points of fact. Then I'll be asking all our speakers who we've identified, who are Mrs. Alacon. We have Mr. Yarmolovic, which I'm never going to get right with my apologies. We then have Mr. Nick Soloway, and we also have, and then Mr. Soloway is observing, and we have Mr. Voisey who will be speaking. Once everybody has spoken, there will be questions from the committee and any points of fact from the officers. Once everybody has spoken, All parties will be given the opportunity to sum up. I'll have to slightly change the party order because we've got a few more speakers than I thought. But that will be the those who made representation, then the applicant, and then our officer, Sarah, on any points of fact. We'll then conclude the hearing, and then the subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and clerk present. Due to COVID, we are not giving decisions immediately, but notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day of the last day on which the hearing was held, which is today, in accordance with the regulations. The notification of the decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate, and I'll be asking our clerk at the given time, Linda, whether she will give that information about the right of appeal. So if everybody's content with all that said, we will proceed. Is everybody happy? Anybody not happy, please just indicate and we can deal with that with your hand. I'm showing no hands. Okay, and very finally, may I just please remind all speakers not to repeat the information which you've already given in writing, but to expand on your written representations, and all questions to come through the chair, please, and there will be no cross-examination of parties allowed. So with that said, thank you. And Sarah, I will pass to you to present the report. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The application before you is for the grant of a premises licence for a cafe restaurant which proposes to provide seasonal menus using locally sourced organic ingredients with the provision of alcohol. The applicant has therefore requested the supply of alcohol both on and off the premises between the hours of 12 midday and 10 o'clock PM each day of the week. No application is sought for regular entertainment nor the provision of late night refreshment. If granted, the premises will benefit from deregulation under the Live Music Act and will be able to provide live and recorded music until their terminal hour. As a result of the consultation, 10 representations were received on the grounds that to grant the application would undermine the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance licensing objectives. No representations were received from any of the responsible authorities. Should this application be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with his licence and any conditions attached to it, he will be aware that any of the responsible authorities or any other person may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I had my mute on. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for that, Sarah. So are there any questions with regard to fact or issue from the members with regard to the report? Councillor Burton?
Sorry, not for me, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And anything for Councillor Decent?
Not at this moment, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. A very succinct report. So, Mr. Murrell, it is now your opportunity to put your application forward. You have as long as you wish. We do want to hear it. I want to hear all the facets of what you have to say to us. So please just say, put your application forward, and you can take as long as you require. Thank you, Mr. Murrell.
Thank you, Mr. Morrell speaking. I don't have too much further to add, apart from what Sarah Rogers has already stated on my licensing application. I feel that everything has been covered there, in fact, and I don't actually need to say any more unless you would like me to.
No, that's absolutely fine. If you don't wish to say any more, I'm sure there'll be some questions from the members. Okay, thank you very much for that. So Mr. Morell's application is as stated. So members, are there any questions at this moment in time? I do have a couple of questions, but I'll demur to your good selves. Councillor Burton?
No questions at the moment, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Decent?
No questions at the moment.
Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Morrell. You advise us in your application with regard to the fact that you are providing for smoking outside of the premise, which will indeed be on the pavement. Could you tell us a little bit more about the area where you expect people to leave to smoke and whether they will be allowed to take a drink outside whilst they are smoking? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. So outside the premises in question is just a public highway, and being a public space, any member of the public, whether they're a patron or not, obviously would be allowed to smoke walking past or stood outside. So I don't have any space at the rear of my premises, so obviously the only space to go outside and smoke would be out the front. I'm not suggesting that that's where I'm going to ask people to go to smoke, and I want people to congregate outside smoking. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying that if people did wish to smoke, I'm just trying to be transparent and let everybody know that that's where they would end up, if that makes sense. Further to your next sort of point about taking alcoholic drinks outside, there would not be any I would not allow anybody to take any drinks outside that are not sealed. On a retail point of view, they would be allowed to, if the off-sales license was granted, that would only be sealed retail beverages. For example, a gift pack, of a local cider perhaps in a hamper, but not anything that's been served to consume on the premises only. So in my application, I had to draw a red line around the section where alcohol would be consumed indoors, and I just want to make everybody aware that if anybody is consuming a drink indoors and they do wish to step outside to smoke or answer the phone, then they would not be allowed to take that drink with them. They would have to discard that drink with us.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. That's extremely helpful. Going back to members, is there anything which has come to mind? We can, of course, you can ask questions at any time, but if there's anything at this moment, Councillor Burton?
Nothing at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Decent?
Not present, Mayor, so Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So then moving on to our representatives, we firstly have Mrs. Alacon. So you'd asked for 5 minutes, Mrs. Alacon, but I'm never mean on time because I like to hear from everybody. So please take your time, and you, when you're ready, put forward your submission. Thank you, Mrs. Alacon.
Well, I don't want to go over, as you said, my written submission, but my objection is not to an alcohol licence overall, but it is this particular alcohol licence and the timings of that. I understand that if you're running a cafe, that you would wish to potentially serve beer or, wine or whatever with a tea or that type of thing. And I have no objection to those, to being granted on those terms. I have an objection to the times of this alcohol licence because the evening, serving of alcohol, it is, would be new to this area. This is a quiet residential street where we have had a cafe for a number of years, but we've never had a 65-seat restaurant, and we've never had the possibility of serving alcohol on and off the premises. We believe, the residents, myself, obviously I speak for myself, but I think you'll see from the objections that the general feeling is that the granting of a alcohol licence for this extended period of time would draw people to this quiet residential area where there are people who potentially are asleep at 10 o'clock at night. There'd be more difficulties with other aspects in the lane, for example, parking, and we already have some issues with congregating around the ducking stool and some antisocial behaviour in the area, and we don't wish to encourage that. We understand that Mr. Murrell's restaurant would be, a much higher quality, place, but we just don't think, I do not think that it is suitable in this area under those conditions, and I would be supportive if Mr. Murrell wished to apply for an alcohol licence between cafe opening hours, say until 6, but not for a restaurant and into the evening. I don't know if the other councillors have been to the lane, but if they have been to the lane, they'll know that it is not a lane where there are other establishments, and it is not a part of the high street. It is behind the high street, and I think the location is quite important. to understand when considering this licence. And I don't know what the distance is between the front of the Duckingstall tea rooms and the houses opposite, but it is a very narrow lane where there is no pavement, public pavement on the other side of the road. So there would be a very limited space for people to congregate. And I think the nearest neighbours would be affected detrimentally. And I think it would encourage congregating of people in that area. I also don't really understand why a licence has been applied for an establishment. My understanding is it doesn't have a licence to function as a restaurant, and I don't understand why the licensing committee would preempt what may be decided by the other parts of the council that decide on use of the premises. That is my submission, and I hope that the other residents will cover any points that I've missed.
Okay, so just thank you very much for that, Mrs. Alarcon. Just to be clear, I can advise you on that. Anybody can put forward a licensing application. They obviously have to have the planning permissions in train, and that's a matter for them afterwards. They are not contemporaneous. They don't have to be done together. Planning can be done first, then licensing, but they have to be enacted together at some stage before they can go ahead. So if Mr. Murrell were successful today, he would need then to put the planning applications in place. That's a matter for him. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
that helps.
clarifying.
Okay, you're more than welcome. Okay, so thank you for that. Moving then to Mr. Jamalkiewicz. Thank you very much. When you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll keep this fairly short. I've got no objections to a cafe. I've actually been in the cafe and it's very nice, and they made me they serve very nice drinks. So that's fine. The issue we have, and I really have to emphasize this, I don't know if any of you have been here. It's a purely residential street with purely terraced houses. It's very narrow. It is a cul-de-sac. Access is a horrendous problem at the best of times because it's a cul-de-sac because of cars permanently parked on the side of this road, and it is permanently parked bumper to bumper. It is a single lane. So cars, we have to wait to let somebody through. It can often take 5 minutes to get in or out of this lane. It's an incredibly cramped and congested area, both from the point of view of traffic and from the point of view of a lot of houses that are terraced, piled on top of each other, literally dozens and dozens of families within yards of this cafe. And the effect that noise in the evening and live music and people congregating outside would be intolerable, and it will cause immense friction that will not dissipate with time, but will lead to a great deal of anger and friction with residents because we're on top of each other here and we have nowhere to go. And whilst I'm fine with it being a cafe, and as I said, it looks very nice. Anything that goes into the street or live music or congregation will cause intolerable friction. And I just don't know, you really have to go and visit it to appreciate how serious this is and what an unusual situation this is. In a purely residential street that's this cramped, this close together. And as Melanie said, we're already having antisocial problems. Partly as a nature of how cramped this is and the fact it's the public walk past. Because its cars are parked bumper to bumper, anyone passing along the pavement will have to squeeze through the customers that are stood outside between the parked cars and the building. It's just a narrow pavement, and if people are outside on it, anyone who's walking past, and many people do walk past, is going to have to squeeze past them, which seems a recipe for problems to me. That's all I have to say. Please go and visit it and take a look, and you'll understand what we're saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jamalkiewicz. That's fine. So moving then to Mr. Voicey. Mr. Voicey? Oh, you're on mute, Mr. Voicey. If you want to unmute your mic.
Okay. Is that okay?
That's lovely. Thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry, Ben. I'd just like to say that what Andrew and Melanie have just said, that I 100% agree with what they've said. On a point that I would like to make is the fact that the licence is going to cover outside as well as inside. I'm against the licence in principle, but the licence is what worries me, because as Andrew said, the road outside is very narrow. The pavement is even narrower. If people are congregated outside, I'm sure that they will take their drinks with them, because people do. But then we have the problem of invalid scooters, children, ladies and gentlemen with their families in prams that will have to walk in the road. Now, whilst this is a quiet lane, deliveries to the hotel still make it very, very dangerous if you're going to walk in the road. There will be no room at all to congregate outside of the ducking stool restaurant or cafe. The fact is that also we have already unsocial behaviour. As early as last Saturday evening, the 12th of December, we had a load of people come down after the pubs were shut at 10 o'clock, and they graffitied on my house. They threw bits of lights of one of my neighbours into the river. They knocked over the tubs on the ducking stool walk. Now, this is something we were already putting up with. Another alcohol premises is going to exacerbate this problem. I fail to see what the reason is that if Mr. Morrell wants a license, why he would want to have it for outside, because people that buy those sealed units of alcohol in his establishment will probably take them down to the ducking stool itself and sit there and drink it. We have all sorts of people from all over the world coming down there. I'm often out there myself cleaning up tins and stuff like that, because the children that come from other schools, other countries, have to put up with this. And if we have another establishment that holds a license, it is only going to get worse. I really don't know what else to say. I'm just so against this sort of thing enhancing the troubles that we're having down here, when one of my neighbours has actually sold her home, up and leaving this week because she can't put up with it any longer, and this can only get worse. So please, please come and have a look for yourselves. Come down one Saturday evening if you've got the time and have a look and see what's going on, so that you know that this situation cannot get any worse, or don't let it get any worse through another licensed premises on our doorstep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Voicey. Members, are there any questions for our objectors, or indeed any points of clarification for Mr. Morrell regarding this application?
Councillor Butt, my name's Nick Soloway. I know I said I'd like to observe, but I have a point on.
Mr. Soloway, please. Could you just be quiet for just one moment? Okay, Mr. Soloway, you're very welcome. What is your point? Did you now wish to say something?
Would that be possible?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. To replicate everything that everybody else said is in line with exactly where I sit. And if we would like an example of this, and if the councillors would like to come and see the wedding venue that sits on Castle Street or Bridge Street, that says no drinking outside, although when there is a wedding on the main high, well, not main high street, but the street with traffic lights, as the cars cross the road, the drinking that goes on the front of the King's Hotel wedding venue will show you exactly what happens, and it can only get exasperated if it's in Duckingstool Lane. That's my point.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Soloway. Thank you. I'll add you to our list of for summary at the end of this meeting. Members, do you have any questions for our four objectors? And indeed, if you wish to any points of confirmation for Mr. Morrell, I'm happy to put those to Mr. Morrell as well. Councillor Burton.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions now, thank you, Chair, and I think Mr. Morrell could probably answer them better than the objectors. It's just picking up a few things. Yes. I mean, I have not recently been down Duckingstool Lane. It's a few years since I've been down there. And I have been looking at it on Google Earth and having looked what it looks like. I mean, the Google Earth picture is a couple of years out of date now. Can you tell me, is the premises open at the moment as a tea room? Or not actually now as because of COVID, but has it been trading recently as a tea room, or is it a new venture?
Mr. Morrell, if you're through the chair. Thank you, Mr. Morrell. If you'd like to answer that, if you can, thank you.
Yes, sure. So the building, to my knowledge, has been empty for about 6 years, residentially, and commercially, I think 8 or 9 years, although I'm sure you could get further clarification from that from the residents. It's been empty and derelict since it was a tea rooms, and I have recently reopened it, I think 8 days now, reinstated it as a tea rooms, just trading from 9 till 5. As a hot chocolate house, serving hot chocolates, teas and coffees and cakes. So in answer to your question, yes, it is currently open, and you are correct in thinking the Google Earth pictures are out of date. It has been empty. It is now operational.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Morrell. Mr. Burton, Councillor Burton, back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand the situation far better now. Understand what I've read as well. So going to the off sales, can you just talk me through how you think how you foresee the off sales working as it is a restaurant?
Mr. Morrell, I think we'd all like to know the type of sales, the type of off sales, because Mr. Voicey was mistaken in thinking that your license extends beyond the curtilage of your building, which of course it doesn't. But if people are buying something from you, designer ciders or whatever you touched on earlier, they'll obviously take them off the premises, so they are going off the premises with them. But the license doesn't extend beyond the curtilage of the building, just for confirmation for our objectors. So perhaps you'd like to tell us all, Councillor Burton raises a very good point, what type of sales, those off sales, you envisage selling. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. So I envisage the off sales being a retail offering of sealed units of locally produced quality craft ciders, beers that are sourced from other local farmers. For example, there's a local farmer in Bransgore, the Framptons. They produce their own craft cider, and I'm all about supporting local, and it would be nice to have a little package of those wrapped up in a hamper, so when the tourists do come down, they can take a gift away for perhaps a member of their family who would appreciate a local New Forest cider, the same way you would take away a local cheese or whatever. That type of offering, I want to make the stress the point that I'm not going to open as an off license, and I'm not going to stock red wine, white wine, beer, cider, lager, spirits. It's the point of the premises is to be a local a premises that sources local ingredients and local quality produce, whether it be food or drink. So there would be a very limited offering of retail off sales. It would not be, you know, shelves and shelves of wine and other things. It would simply be a limited selection of craft beverages sourced locally. I hope I've made that clear.
Yes, thank you. Just to clarify, so no wine or spirits sold in bottles, the limited offering, and clearly whatever alcohol you intend to sell off sales, you do need a license for it, so hence why your application. That's very useful. Thank you for that confirmation. Councillor Burton, did you have anything else at this moment?
Not at this moment, thank you, Chair.
Okay, you're more than welcome to come back as the debate ensues. Councillor Decent, do you have anything at the moment?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Decent, in your own time.
He mentioned about, sorry about that, Chair. You mentioned about people standing outside the premises wanting to smoke. Do you limit the amount of people actually standing outside, and do you have a CCTV camera to monitor it? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Decent. Yes, Mr. Morrow, could you answer that, please, for us?
Yes, certainly. So currently I have the, I'm going to talk about the CCTV first, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Currently I have the provision for a top of the range CCTV system to be installed. So I have the infrastructure is in. I have not yet installed the CCTV cameras themselves. I haven't got round to it yet, and I didn't think it was in great need of this at the moment, as I'm only operating within limited hours, and I'm only serving hot chocolates, teas and coffees. We haven't done any great advertising, and it's a very quiet road at the moment. So my intention is to install a high quality CCTV system. The infrastructure is there to do that, and I simply have to buy the cameras and install them. I will be having CCTV inside the premises as well as one outside the premises, looking down towards the ducking stool. And I just want to bring up the point that I feel this would actually promote safety and promote sort of preventing crime and disorder. It would be more of a deterrent for people coming down the lane. If anybody did have any issues, then they would be caught on CCTV, whereas at the moment they're not. So that's the CCTV bit answered for you. Yes, I am having a CCTV system installed, a very good one. The smoking outside, this has been quite a difficult one for me, and I'm trying to be as real and as transparent as possible. And please bear in mind that this is the first premises I've ever opened, so I'm also learning and open to people's guidance. I, as an owner-operator, try to be present as much as I can if I'm not running around doing jobs. And obviously, I would try and talk to as many of my guests as possible and encourage them to not congregate outside in large groups, and obviously be aware of the neighbours and be respectful to my neighbours. But I would obviously, if there was a route possible to go down enforcement-wise of me enforcing a way of stopping large groups congregating outside, then I would actually encourage that. If I had the tools to be able to enforce the a limit of perhaps 4 or 2, I don't know, I would encourage that, and I would like to be able to enforce that, but I don't actually know how I would go about enforcing people to disperse in a public area, if that makes sense. So yes, I would be open to limiting the number of people outside, but it is a public highway and there is a tourist attraction at the end of the highway, which is the ducking stool. So it would be speculation as to whether they would be my guests or just people hanging around in the street, because as the residents have said, you do get some people just hanging around in the street. So I'm hopefully that lets you know where my head is at, and hopefully it does give some clarity to your question. Yes, that's very useful. I'm just writing something down, if you just bear with me. It's fine. Yes, you offer the enforcement angle. Of course, as a public highway, you have no jurisdiction whatsoever outside the curtilage of your building, but it may possibly be possible that you would be able to, as management of your clients, as to who was leaving to have a cigarette and in what number, that might be something open to you. But that would, I believe, be very much a matter down to you, whether that could be conditioned or not. If we were so minded to grant, that's something we'll ask our legal advisor in our discussions when we're making our decision. Are there any, thank you very much for that, Mr. Moore, you've been extremely helpful. I'd just like to ask, there was a suggestion that there would be live music. Now, I don't believe that your application includes live music. Could we just have confirmation that that's the case, please? Yes, Mr. Morrell. So I have no intentions of having any live music. Yeah, and your application doesn't indicate, you haven't asked for a license for the use of live music either. That's correct. It's just there was concern by one of our objectors that there would be live music, so just to put their minds at rest. Play recorded music. Yes, recorded music is acceptable, but we're talking about live music. Okay, just making sure. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so if we have no further questions, with regards to the objectors' points, we are now in the situation where all parties have the opportunity to sum up
And this is for our objectors to make any points that you think are relevant, to reiterate any points, and perhaps any points where you've heard information from Mr. Murrell and questioning from the members. So I will start with the last person first, and that's you, Mr. Soloway. You have an opportunity to speak again if you so wish.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. I've made my point. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soloway. Mr. Voisey. You're on mute, Mr. Voisey. That's it. Please feel free to start again.
I'm so sorry.
That's not
thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, we respect Mr. Morrow's wanting to make a success of his business, but I have to stress the large number of residents have invested a great deal of money within their homes, which I think would be impacted on their investments due to the increase in social and antisocial behaviour. The thing is that while I can't understand Mr. Morrell, he thinks that he can control the crowd of people or the gathering of people outside of his establishment. But as Nick said, the people outside the Kings, they leave the establishment and then congregate on the road. And I fear that if there is a sale of whatever, designer ciders, doesn't matter which, that they can take their cider and go and congregate at the ducking stall itself, which is right in the centre of residential homes. I've seen it happen before, and what I'm worried about is this situation getting worse. I implore you to put restrictions on this licence for him. I want to see him succeed, but I also want to protect the neighbours and the residents and their investments in Duckingstall Walk and Duckingstall Lane. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Moisey. So, Mr. Yamulkiewicz, please.
I think I've made my point. So again, I'll just reiterate how cramped, congested an area this is. We're living on top of each other here, and that any noise in the evening is going to really cause the most dreadful problems for people, and it's going to cause serious friction. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Alacon.
Yes, I just wanted to say I think that Mr. Murrell, has highlighted the main point. With the best will in the world, even if you intend to be at the site and you intend to be speaking to your customers and you intend to try to enforce something, it's actually very difficult to enforce. And other establishments in Christchurch also find it difficult to enforce. It's hard to keep people from congregate or speaking loudly at night. What are the people in the restaurant supposed to do? Keep popping out and say, can you keep your voices down at 9 o'clock, when the people who are literally, 5 or 6 metres across the road are having a quiet evening? I just think that the congregation aspect will increase noise and disturbance in the lane. I mean, in the evenings it's quiet in the lane and it will be heard and it will disturb, people. And even if you really want to try, and I do believe that Mr. Murrell has very good intentions, I think it will be very difficult to control that. And I do think it will add to noise and disturbance and general sort of difficulties in this quiet lane.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Alacon. Thank you. So now we move to Mr. Murrell. You have your opportunity to sum up. Mr. Murrell, if you want to reflect or respond to any of those concerns, please do. This is your opportunity to do so. Thank you. With regard to the limitation of noise, the access and egress where noise may come out as your customers come and leave, and basically the general outside use of the space with regard to smoking. Thank you.
Okay, so firstly, I'd like to thank my neighbours for bringing forward their concerns, and I appreciate the conversation, and I do sympathise with your concerns. As Melanie has rightly brought up, and we agree with each other on the fact that enforcing something that's nigh on unenforceable will be quite difficult, and I will try my hardest to do so. I just want to do just 2 points. The first point is I have no intention of applying to highways for any tables and chairs on the pavement. So I have no intention of having any seating outside my premises, keeping the highway clear for pedestrians and pavement users. I know that there was an established use, which I know has expired, but that was previously used for that, and the neighbours have let me know that it was actually inappropriate, and I completely agree with them, and I have no intention of reapplying for any tables or chairs on the pavement, which brings me to my point about hopefully that will not encourage any congregating on the pavement. I'm going to do my best not to not encourage anybody to stand outside. I'm trying to make the inside so nice that people want to stay inside. That's that bit. There was another point, but it can't have been important as that one because I've forgotten it. But I think I remember.
Sat around noise, I believe.
It was one more. On the paperwork, for safety, fire safety and evacuation reasons, I have to state a number on the paperwork of the maximum number of people allowed in the building at any one time, including staff. Now, a structural surveyor has been in and has given me a number, which I then lowered after speaking to a local fire officer about how many people I can safely evacuate from the building in a certain amount of time, and he said that number is 65. Now, the neighbours that have been into the building are fully aware that I am also aware that 65 is a number that we've been told is the maximum we can have safely, but not a 65-seater restaurant. So to bring that point into relevance, I'm saying that there will not be a 65-seater restaurant. Okay, there's going to be in the restaurant offering a number of tables which will have covers, and that will be set lower than 65. There will never be any more than 65 people allowed legally inside the building for fire reasons. So to try and set people's mind at rest, it's not a noisy 65-seater restaurant. I'm not going to have hundreds of people in there at once, or 65 people at once, and they're all going to be congregating on the pavement. It will be less. That was just for fire reasons. It's not my intention to have 65 covers. So hopefully that will put people's mind at rest that it's not going to be full of people making noise or congregating outside. That's the 2 points that I would like to sort of clarify for everybody, and hopefully that's it, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Merrill. It's extremely useful. Sarah, did you have any points of fact you wanted to raise, just as the last person to speak?
No, that's fine, unless you wanted some confirmation over the live music and why I mentioned it in the introduction. Because
I think that may be very useful. Yes, thank you, Sarah.
So under the Live Music Act, premises that are licensed for on sales can benefit from deregulation, so that they are able to have live and recorded music between 8 and 11. So, and if there are conditions on a license, they're suspended for that period of time. So it was just to, but as Mr. Morales said, it's not his intention to have any live music in any event.
That's really useful. Thank you very much for that, Sarah. It certainly does help. So, ladies and gentlemen, could I just ask, please, that everybody is content? They've all had their opportunity to speak and put their points forward and answer their questions. If there's anybody who isn't, could they just indicate by hand, please? Okay. I'm actually talking more to the members, Mr. Voicey, but I will take one last point from you as long as it's short. Can you hear me, Mr. Voicey?
Yes, I can, and thank you. It was very short. The difference between having a license in that establishment and not is going to be detrimental to the residents here. And whatever Mr. Morale says, it will have a massive impact on the residents in this residential street. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Voicey. So with that last point put, can I ask that everybody is content and that everybody has had an opportunity to speak? So with that said now, we will be adjourning now to deliberate in private with our legal advisor, Linda, and our clerk, Nikki. And I will just ask, please, that Linda advise about any rights of appeal as appropriate. Thank you, Linda.
Of course, thank you, Chair. So There is a right of appeal to whatever decision the licensing committee make today. That appeal should be made to Dorset magistrates within 21 days of formal notification of today's decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. That's always very, very helpful to hear. So with that said, then this hearing will conclude and we will adjourn. So ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, thank you all so much for attending. It's really important that you come along and are able to speak. I hope you felt that you have been able to say what you want to say today. I'm sure that Mr. Morale has heard what you said. The members certainly had. We'll be very careful in our deliberations. So I'll say goodbye to you. I wish you all a very, very happy Christmas. And I hope that a nice COVID-free year. So I will ask then, please, Chris or Max, if you could stop the recording and close the meeting. Thank you very much.